Marcus Wellington stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city bustling 40 stories below. His perfectly tailored suit cost more than most people made in a month, and his gold watch gleamed under the afternoon sun. At 52, he had built an empire worth billions, starting from nothing but determination and ruthless business sense. Hotels, real estate, technology companies. His name was on buildings across 3 continents. But today, none of that mattered. Behind him, in the corner of his luxurious office, lay the reason for his current frustration. Thunder, a massive German shepherd, remained motionless on an expensive dog bed, his once bright eyes now dull and distant. The dog hadn't eaten properly in weeks, barely responded to his name, and seemed to have lost all interest in life. Marcus turned away from the window and walked toward his beloved companion. Thunder had been with him for 8 years, a gift from his late wife Elena before she passed from cancer. During her final months, Thunder had rarely left her side, somehow sensing her pain. After Elena died 2 years ago, both Marcus and Thunder had struggled. But while Marcus buried himself in work, Thunder simply began fading away. "Come on, boy," Marcus said softly, kneeling beside the dog. Thunder's ears twitched slightly, but he didn't lift his head. The sight broke Marcus's heart more than any business failure ever could. Dr. Sarah Morrison, the city's most renowned veterinarian, had examined Thunder countless times. She sat across from Marcus now, her expression sympathetic but concerned. "Physically, he's healthy," she explained for the 3rd time this month. "All his tests come back normal. This is emotional trauma, Marcus. Dogs grieve just like humans do. Thunder is depressed." Marcus rubbed his temples. He had tried everything money could buy. The best dog trainers, animal behaviorists, even a pet psychologist who charged $500 an hour. Nothing worked. Thunder continued his slow decline, eating just enough to survive but showing no spark of his former self. "There has to be something," Marcus insisted. "Some treatment, some specialist." "I don't care what it costs." Dr. Morrison shook her head gently. "Sometimes healing can't be bought, Marcus. Thunder needs something that connects with his heart, not his body. Elena had a special bond with him. He needs to feel that kind of pure, unconditional love again." After Dr. Morrison left, Marcus sat alone with Thunder, feeling more helpless than he had since Elena's diagnosis. He was a man who solved problems with money and power, but this challenge seemed beyond both. His assistant Jennifer knocked quietly before entering. "Mr. Wellington, your 4 o'clock appointment is here," she said, then noticed his expression. "Sir, is everything all right?" Marcus gestured toward Thunder. "Look at him, Jen. I'd give away half my fortune if someone could bring back the dog Elena fell in love with." Jennifer, who had worked for Marcus for 10 years, understood his pain. She had watched Elena and Thunder together, seen how the dog would rest his head on Elena's lap during her chemotherapy treatments, how he seemed to absorb her sadness and somehow make it lighter. "Maybe you should consider getting another dog," she suggested carefully, not to replace Thunder but to give him a companion. "No," Marcus said firmly. "Elena chose Thunder. He was special to her and he's special to me. I won't give up on him." That evening, Marcus canceled his dinner plans and remained in his office with Thunder. He ordered takeout, though neither of them ate much. As the city lights began twinkling below, Marcus found himself talking to the dog the way he used to talk to Elena. "Remember when she first brought you home?" he said, sitting on the floor beside Thunder's bed. "You were just a puppy, all paws and energy. You chewed her favorite shoes and she laughed instead of getting angry. She said you were perfect just the way you were." Thunder's tail moved slightly, barely a flutter, but Marcus noticed. Encouraged, he continued sharing memories. "She used to say you understood every word she spoke. During her treatments, when the pain was bad, you'd lie so still beside her like you knew she needed gentle comfort." As the night wore on, Marcus realized he had been talking to Thunder more in these few hours than he had in months. Perhaps Dr. Morrison was right. Healing couldn't always be purchased. But Marcus Wellington hadn't become a billionaire by accepting defeat easily. The next morning, he made a decision that would surprise everyone who knew him. Instead of continuing his search for expensive specialists, he would try a different approach. He would offer a challenge that would bring people to Thunder, people who might possess the genuine care and intuition that no amount of professional training could provide. "Jennifer," he called his assistant, "I want you to contact the local media. All of them. I'm making an announcement that will either make me look like a genius or a complete fool. What kind of announcement, sir? Marcus looked at Thunder, still lying listlessly in his corner. I'm going to bet $1 million that nobody in this city can get Thunder to respond the way he used to with Elena. If someone can make him eat normally, play and show genuine happiness for a full week, they win the money. Jennifer's eyes widened. Sir, are you sure about this? $1 million? Jennifer, I've spent nearly that much on specialists already. At least this way we'll get people who truly care about animals, not just those looking for a paycheck. Maybe someone out there has the gift Elena had. As Marcus announced his unusual wager to a surprised but intrigued media, he had no idea that his challenge would soon attract attention from the most unexpected source. Someone who understood loss and loneliness in ways that no trained professional ever could. The story spread like wildfire across the city and beyond. Within 24 hours of Marcus's announcement, every major news outlet had picked up the tale of the grieving billionaire and his depressed dog. Social media buzzed with opinions, advice, and criticism. Some called Marcus eccentric. Others praised his dedication to his pet. But everyone was talking about the $1 million dog challenge. By the second day, a line of hopeful candidates stretched around the block outside Wellington Tower. Marcus had established specific rules. Each person would get 30 minutes with Thunder in a controlled environment. A panel of 3 veterinarians would observe and judge whether any genuine progress was made. The money would only be awarded if Thunder showed consistent improvement over 7 consecutive days. Dr. Angela Rodriguez, a famous animal behaviorist from California, arrived first. She came armed with specialized equipment, treats imported from Switzerland, and a confidence that bordered on arrogance. Her books on animal psychology had made her wealthy, and she saw this challenge as an easy way to add another million to her fortune. Grief in animals is simply misplaced energy, she explained to Marcus as she set up her equipment in the specially prepared room. With the right stimulation and behavioral modification techniques, any dog can be redirected toward positive responses. Thunder lay on his bed, completely ignoring the elaborate setup around him. Dr. Rodriguez tried everything in her arsenal: high-value treats, sound therapy, light therapy, even aromatherapy with scents designed to calm anxious animals. She spoke in soothing tones, used hand signals, and attempted to engage Thunder with toys that had worked miracles with other dogs. Thunder remained motionless, his eyes fixed on nothing in particular. When Dr. Rodriguez tried to physically encourage him to stand, he complied passively but immediately returned to his lying position the moment she released him. After 30 minutes, she emerged from the room frustrated and embarrassed. "This is highly unusual," she muttered to Marcus. "I've never encountered such complete emotional withdrawal. Perhaps medication might help." Marcus shook his head. Dr. Morrison already ruled that out. Thunder's body is healthy. This is about his heart. The next candidate was Roberto Silva, a dog trainer who had worked with police departments and military units for 20 years. His approach was completely different from Dr. Rodriguez's gentle methods. Roberto believed in structure, discipline, and creating purpose for directionless animals. "What this dog needs is a job," Roberto announced confidently. "Depression comes from lack of purpose. Give him tasks, create routine, establish pack leadership." Roberto entered the room with commanding energy, immediately establishing himself as the alpha presence. He used firm voice commands, created obstacle courses, and attempted to engage Thunder's natural instincts as a working breed. He brought in tennis balls, rope toys, and even tried basic obedience training. Thunder responded minimally to the commands, following them with the mechanical compliance of a robot. He would sit when commanded, stay when told, but there was no enthusiasm, no tail wagging, no spark of interest. When Roberto tried to initiate play, Thunder would briefly interact but then immediately lose focus and return to his passive state. Roberto admitted after a session. "Usually establishing pack order creates immediate improvement. This dog's spirit is more broken than I initially assessed." By the end of the first week, 12 specialists had tried and failed. Marcus watched each attempt with growing desperation. A renowned pet psychic claimed Thunder was trying to communicate with Elena's spirit and needed crystal therapy. A famous dog whisperer from television attempted to use meditation and energy healing. Even a circus trainer who had worked with tigers and elephants couldn't spark any genuine response from Thunder. The media coverage intensified with each failure. News cameras captured Marcus's increasing exhaustion and frustration. Reporters speculated about whether the challenge was even possible. Some critics suggested that Marcus was exploiting his dog's condition for publicity, though most who saw his genuine anguish recognized the depth of his love for Thunder. Dr. Morrison visited regularly to monitor Thunder's condition. "He's not getting worse," she reported to Marcus during the second week. "But he's not improving either. His physical health remains stable, but emotionally, he's still completely withdrawn." Marcus sat in his office each evening, reading through the hundreds of emails and letters that arrived daily. People from around the world offered advice, shared their own stories of pet loss, and volunteered to try helping Thunder. Some suggestions were practical, others bizarre, but all came from people who understood the bond between humans and animals. One letter particularly caught his attention. It came from a retired teacher named Mrs. Henderson, who had worked with troubled children for 40 years. "Mr. Wellington," she wrote, "I've spent my career helping young people who had given up on life. Sometimes the most damaged souls can only be reached by someone who truly understands their pain. You might need to look for someone who has experienced the same kind of loss and loneliness that Thunder feels." Marcus read the letter several times. All the specialists who had attempted to help Thunder were successful professionals with impressive credentials, but none had experienced the profound grief that Thunder was enduring. They approached his depression as a problem to be solved rather than a pain to be understood. On day 10 of the challenge, Marcus made an announcement that surprised everyone. "We're opening this to anyone," he told the media. "Professional credentials are no longer required. If someone believes they can help Thunder, they're welcome to try." The change brought an immediate shift in the types of people who came forward. Instead of expensive specialists, Marcus began seeing ordinary pet owners, elderly people who had lost beloved companions, and even children who seemed to possess a natural intuition about animals. Mrs. Helen Chang, an 80-year-old widow, spent her 30 minutes simply sitting quietly beside Thunder, occasionally humming lullabies she used to sing to her own German Shepherd. Thunder's breathing seemed to slow and deepen during her visit, though he still didn't move or eat. 8-year-old Tommy Martinez brought drawings he had made of dogs and sat cross-legged next to Thunder, showing him each picture and explaining the stories behind them. Thunder's ears moved slightly as Tommy spoke, the first time anyone had seen him respond to human voice with even minimal interest. Marcus felt a flicker of hope with each small response, but none of the visitors created the breakthrough he desperately sought. Thunder remained trapped in his grief, unreachable despite the parade of caring people who tried to connect with him. As the second week ended, Marcus faced a harsh reality. Maybe Dr. Rodriguez had been right about medication. Maybe Thunder's depression was too profound to heal naturally. The thought of giving up on their bond, of accepting that Thunder might never recover his joy, filled Marcus with the same helplessness he had felt watching Elena slip away. But something Mrs. Henderson had written kept echoing in his mind. Someone who truly understands their pain. Marcus realized he hadn't yet encountered anyone whose loss matched the depth of Thunder's grief. He needed to find someone who understood what it meant to lose everything, and still find a reason to hope. 3 weeks into the challenge, the story had become international news. Television crews from 6 countries camped outside Wellington Tower, and social media hashtags like #TryWithThunder Challenge and raw's $1 million dog trending worldwide. Marcus had become an unwilling celebrity, his face appearing on magazine covers with headlines like "The Billionaire Who Loves His Dog More Than Money" and "Desperate Rich Man's Last Hope." The attention brought both support and harsh criticism. Animal rights activists protested outside the building, claiming Marcus was exploiting Thunder's condition for publicity. Business rivals suggested he was having a mental breakdown and should step down from his company. The stress began taking its toll on Marcus's health and business operations. "Sir, the board is concerned," Jennifer informed him during a brief morning meeting. "Stock prices have dropped 8% since this began. Some investors think you've lost focus on the company." Marcus barely looked up from the stack of applications on his desk. "Then they don't understand what really matters in life, Jen. Thunder isn't a publicity stunt. He's family." The quality of applicants had become increasingly desperate. A man claiming to be a former circus performer insisted he could train Thunder to perform tricks that would spark his interest. A woman who said she could communicate with animal spirits charged $3,000 just for a consultation. Marcus paid the fee, but Thunder showed no response to her elaborate ritual involving crystals and burning sage. Dr. Morrison expressed growing concern about the parade of strangers constantly around Thunder. This level of stimulation might actually be making his condition worse, she warned Marcus. He's being exposed to dozens of different people, sounds, and smells every day. For a depressed animal, this could be overwhelming rather than helpful. But Marcus couldn't bring himself to stop. Each failure only strengthened his determination to find the right person. He had reduced his work schedule to almost nothing, spending hours each day observing the sessions with Thunder, looking for any sign of progress. On day 22, a renowned animal researcher from Japan arrived with a new theory. Dr. Kenji Tanaka believed that Thunder's depression stemmed from disrupted circadian rhythms and chemical imbalances caused by grief. His treatment involved specialized lighting, specific musical frequencies, and a diet designed to boost mood-regulating neurotransmitters. The setup resembled a medical laboratory more than a therapeutic environment. Thunder endured the treatment with his usual passive compliance but showed no improvement. If anything, the clinical atmosphere seemed to make him retreat further into himself. Perhaps, Dr. Tanaka suggested after his failed attempt, the dog has simply chosen to die of sadness. In some cases, the will to live cannot be restored through external intervention. Marcus felt something inside him break at those words. He had built a fortune by refusing to accept defeat. But Thunder's condition was teaching him the limits of money and determination. That evening, he sat alone in his office with Thunder, questioning everything he had done. "Maybe I'm making this worse for you, boy," he whispered, gently stroking Thunder's head. "Maybe I should just let you grieve in peace instead of parading strangers in front of you every day." Thunder's response was heartbreaking. For the first time in weeks, he lifted his head and looked directly at Marcus. His eyes, though still sad, seemed to hold a message of understanding and forgiveness. Then he laid his head back down and closed his eyes. The media scrutiny intensified when a prominent psychiatrist published an opinion piece suggesting that Marcus was projecting his own unresolved grief onto Thunder. "This man hasn't properly processed his wife's death," Dr. Elizabeth Warren wrote. "He's using his dog's condition to avoid facing his own emotional healing." The article stung because Marcus recognized some truth in it. He had thrown himself into work after Elena's death, avoiding the painful process of grieving. Now, watching Thunder suffer from the same avoidance, Marcus began confronting his own unhealed wounds. Religious leaders began offering spiritual guidance, suggesting that both Marcus and Thunder needed to accept Elena's passing and find peace. New Age healers proposed energy clearing and past life regression therapy. Even legitimate therapists volunteered their services, though none specialized in the unique bond between grieving humans and animals. On day 25, disaster struck. During a session with an overly enthusiastic dog trainer who used high-energy motivation techniques, Thunder collapsed. The stress of constant stimulation had finally overwhelmed his weakened emotional state. Dr. Morrison rushed to examine him while Marcus panicked. "He's physically exhausted," she reported after a thorough examination. "His blood pressure is elevated and he's showing signs of chronic stress. Marcus, you need to stop this challenge. You're risking his life." Marcus felt the walls closing in. The media would soon learn about Thunder's collapse and the criticism would become unbearable. More importantly, he might actually harm the dog he was trying to save. But stopping the challenge felt like giving up on Elena's memory and Thunder's future. That night, security had to increase due to the growing crowds outside. Protesters chanted about animal abuse while supporters held vigils with candles and signs reading, "Pray for Thunder." The scene had become chaotic, with news vans, protesters, supporters, and curious onlookers creating a circus atmosphere that completely contradicted Marcus's original intention. Jennifer found Marcus slumped at his desk at 3 a.m, surrounded by hundreds of letters and emails. "Sir, you need to go home and rest. Thunder needs you to be strong." "I don't know what to do anymore, Jen," Marcus admitted, his voice cracking. "Elena would know how to help him. She always knew exactly what he needed. I feel like I'm failing both of them." Jennifer sat down across from him, something she had never done in 10 years of working together. "Mr. Wellington, maybe the answer isn't about finding the right technique or the perfect specialist. Maybe Thunder just needs someone who understands loss the way he does. Someone who isn't trying to fix him but just wants to sit with him in his sadness." What do you mean? Think about who Elena was, Jennifer continued carefully. She wasn't a dog trainer or animal expert. She was just someone with a huge heart who loved unconditionally. She didn't try to cure Thunder when he was a puppy having anxiety attacks during thunderstorms. She just held him until he felt safe. Marcus looked through the window at the circus below, then at Thunder sleeping restlessly in his bed. Jennifer was right. He had been searching for expertise when what Thunder needed was the same quality Elena had possessed. Pure, patient love from someone who understood suffering. I'm going to make one more announcement, Marcus decided. But this time I'm not looking for professionals or specialists. I want to find someone who has lost everything and somehow found the strength to keep going. Someone who knows what it feels like to have their world fall apart. As dawn broke over the city, Marcus prepared for what he hoped would be the final phase of his desperate search. He had no idea that the person Thunder needed most was already closer than he could have imagined, living in the shadows of his own building, surviving on the streets with a wisdom that no amount of money could buy. Maya had been watching the crowds outside Wellington Tower for 3 weeks. At 16, she had been living on the streets for over a year, invisible to most people who hurried past in their expensive clothes and important lives. She had learned to find food in restaurant dumpsters, shelter in doorways, and warmth wherever she could manage. But what kept her alive wasn't survival skills. It was her ability to understand and help the abandoned animals she encountered. Every morning, Maya positioned herself across the street from the tower, not because she cared about the $1 million, but because something about the whole situation reminded her of her own story. She had read about Marcus Wellington's challenge in a discarded newspaper and felt a familiar ache in her chest. She knew what it was like to lose everything and retreat so far inside yourself that the world became gray and meaningless. Maya's own mother had died when she was 14, leaving her alone with an abusive stepfather who eventually threw her out. She had spent her first months on the street in a depression so deep that she barely ate or spoke. It wasn't until she found a starving, injured cat in an alley that she discovered her purpose. Caring for that cat had given her a reason to get up each day, to find food, to keep going. Since then, Maya had become known among the homeless community as someone who could help troubled animals. Stray dogs that bit everyone else would calm down around her. Cats that had been abused would eventually trust her gentle touch. She had an intuitive understanding of trauma that came from living through it herself. From her observation spot, Maya had watched the parade of specialists, trainers, and healers entering and leaving the building. She could tell from their confident body language and expensive equipment that they were approaching Thunder's problem like a puzzle to be solved. But Maya understood that some kinds of pain couldn't be fixed. They could only be acknowledged and gently held until healing happened naturally. On this particular morning, Maya noticed something different. Marcus Wellington himself stood at the building's entrance looking exhausted and defeated. The crowds had thinned somewhat after news of Thunder's collapse, and there seemed to be fewer applicants arriving. Maya had read in another discarded paper that the challenge might be ending soon. "That's him," whispered Jake, another homeless teenager who sometimes shared information about safe places to sleep. "My sister works cleaning offices in there. She says the dog won't eat anything and just lies there like he's waiting to die." Maya felt her heart clench. She had seen that look in her own reflection during her darkest days. She understood the weight of sadness that could make even breathing feel like too much effort. Without really deciding to do it, she found herself walking across the street. Security guards moved to stop her as she approached the building's entrance, but Maya wasn't trying to get inside. She simply wanted to get closer, to see if her instincts about Thunder were correct. As she got nearer to the glass doors, she could see through the lobby to where a small crowd of people waited with their applications and equipment. "Excuse me, miss, you need to move along," one security guard said, not unkindly but firmly. Maya was about to leave when Marcus Wellington looked up and saw her. Something in her eyes stopped him mid-conversation with his assistant. Maya was thin from irregular meals. Her clothes were worn and patched, and her dark hair was pulled back with a rubber band. But her eyes held a depth that spoke of experiences far beyond her years. Marcus walked toward the entrance, studying Maya's face. She didn't look away or seem intimidated by his wealth or reputation. Instead, she met his gaze with a steady composure that reminded him strangely of Elena. "Are you here about Thunder?" Marcus asked through the glass door. Maya nodded. "I'd like to try helping him." Do you have experience with animal training or therapy? Maya shook her head. No training. But I understand what it's like to lose everything and not want to keep going. Marcus felt something shift inside him. After weeks of impressive resumes and confident claims, Maya's simple honesty was jarring. He opened the door and stepped outside to talk with her properly. What's your name? Maya. How old are you, Maya? 16. Marcus looked at this young woman who carried herself with a gravity that suggested she had lived through more hardship than most adults. You're homeless. It wasn't a question, and Maya didn't pretend otherwise. Yes. Why do you think you can help Thunder when all these experts have failed? Maya was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because sometimes when you're in a really dark place, you don't need someone to pull you out. You need someone who's willing to sit in the dark with you until you're ready to find your own way back to the light. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. In all the weeks of technical explanations and professional theories, no one had described what Elena used to do so perfectly. Elena had never tried to fix Thunder's puppy anxieties or Marcus's work stress. She had simply been present with them, offering her quiet strength until they felt capable of handling things themselves. The thing is, Marcus said carefully, this isn't just about helping an animal. There's a lot of media attention, criticism, money involved. It's become complicated. Maya looked at the news vans and protesters, then back at Marcus. Dogs don't care about any of that stuff. They just know when someone genuinely cares about them. Marcus made a decision that surprised him. Would you like to meet Thunder? No cameras, no observers, no pressure. Just you and him. Maya's face showed the first hint of emotion he had seen. Really? You'd let me try? Yes, but I need to be honest with you. He's in a very bad state. He hasn't responded meaningfully to anyone. I don't want you to get your hopes up. I don't need him to get better, Maya said simply. I just want him to know that someone understands how much he's hurting. As Marcus led Maya through the lobby, past the waiting room full of professionals with their equipment and theories, he felt something he hadn't experienced in weeks. Genuine hope. Not hope that Thunder would be fixed or cured, but hope that he might finally encounter someone who approached his pain with the same gentle acceptance that Elena had always shown. Maya walked beside Marcus toward the elevator, her calm presence already affecting the atmosphere of the building. She wasn't carrying any equipment, hadn't brought any special treats or tools. All she carried was her own hard-won understanding of grief and the patient wisdom that comes from surviving the unimaginable. For the first time since Elena's death, Marcus felt like he might have found someone who truly understood what both he and Thunder needed. Not a cure, but compassion. Not answers, but acknowledgement. Not false hope, but genuine presence in the midst of real pain. The room where Thunder spent his days had been transformed into a clinical space over the weeks of the challenge. Cameras, monitoring equipment, and various therapeutic tools cluttered the area. Maya stopped at the doorway and shook her head gently. Could we clear all this out? She asked Marcus quietly. It feels like a hospital in here. That's not what he needs. Marcus was surprised by the request but found himself trusting Maya's instincts. He instructed the technicians to remove all the equipment, leaving only Thunder's bed, water bowl, and food dish. The room suddenly felt more peaceful, more like a comfortable space where healing might actually occur. Thunder lay on his side, his magnificent coat dull and his ribs slightly visible from weeks of poor eating. Maya approached slowly, making no sudden movements or sounds. She didn't try to get his attention or call his name. Instead, she simply sat down on the floor about 6 feet away and waited. Marcus watched from a chair near the door, ready to intervene if necessary. But Maya's approach was so different from everyone else's that he found himself curious rather than worried. She wasn't trying to do anything to Thunder. She was just being present with him. For the first 10 minutes, Maya sat in complete silence. She didn't look directly at Thunder, didn't try to coax him or offer treats. She simply existed in the same space, breathing quietly, occasionally shifting position but never making any demands on his attention. It was the most patient approach Marcus had ever witnessed. Slowly, Thunder's ears began to move. Just tiny adjustments at first, then more obvious tilts as he registered this new person's presence. Unlike all the previous visitors, Maya wasn't radiating expectation or energy. She felt safe in a way that professional confidence couldn't replicate. After 20 minutes, Maya spoke for the first time, but not to Thunder. She spoke to the air as if talking to herself. I had a dog once, she said softly. His name was Buddy. He was old when I found him, already sick. The vet said I should put him to sleep, that keeping him alive was cruel. But Buddy wasn't ready to go yet. He just needed someone to sit with him while he figured out if he wanted to keep fighting. Thunder's head moved slightly. The first voluntary movement Marcus had seen from him in days. Maya continued her gentle monologue. People kept telling me I was being selfish, keeping a sick dog alive. They said I should let him go. But I knew Buddy wasn't ready yet. Some mornings he wouldn't eat, wouldn't move, would just lie there like he wanted to disappear. But other days, he'd lift his head when I came home like he was glad someone cared whether he lived or died. Thunder's breathing had changed, becoming deeper and more relaxed. His eyes, though still closed, seemed less tightly shut. The thing about losing someone you love, Maya continued, is that everyone wants you to feel better faster than you're ready to. They bring you food and tell you to eat. They say you need to get out more, meet new people, start over. But sometimes you just need to be sad for a while. Sometimes you need someone to understand that getting better isn't about forgetting. It's about learning to carry the love and the loss at the same time. For the first time in weeks, Thunder opened his eyes fully. He didn't look at Maya directly, but he was clearly listening to her words. Marcus felt his heart racing, but he forced himself to remain still and quiet. Maya slowly reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. It wasn't a fancy treat or a therapeutic tool. It was a piece of plain bread, slightly stale, probably from her own meager meal. She placed it on the floor between them and went back to talking. Buddy never got completely better, she said. Some days were harder than others. But eventually he started eating a little more, walking a little farther. Not because anyone made him, but because he decided he wasn't done living yet. He died peacefully about 6 months later, but those months were good ones. He remembered how to be happy even while he was still sad. Thunder's nose twitched. The bread didn't smell like the expensive treats everyone else had offered. It smelled simple, honest, like the kind of food someone shared when they had very little but wanted to give what they could. Maya didn't push the bread toward Thunder or encourage him to take it. She just left it there as an offering, a gesture of understanding rather than expectation. Then she did something that shocked Marcus. She lay down on the floor herself, curling up in a position that mirrored Thunder's posture. "I know you miss her," Maya whispered so quietly that Marcus had to strain to hear. "I know everything feels wrong without her. I know you don't want to eat or play or do any of the things that used to make you happy. That's okay. You don't have to pretend to feel better for anyone." Thunder's tail moved, not a wag, but a slight shift that suggested he was responding to Maya's words. Slowly, carefully, he lifted his head and looked directly at the girl who lay nearby. Maya didn't react with excitement or try to capitalize on the moment. She simply looked back at him with eyes that held no judgment, no expectation, just recognition of shared pain. For several minutes they looked at each other in complete understanding. Then Thunder did something that brought tears to Marcus's eyes. He slowly, painfully stretched his neck forward and sniffed the piece of bread Maya had offered. He didn't eat it immediately, but he acknowledged it, considered it, showed the first interest in food that he had displayed in weeks. Maya smiled softly but didn't move toward him. "Take your time," she whispered. "There's no rush. I'll be here as long as you need me to be." As the hour continued, Thunder gradually became more alert. He didn't suddenly transform into his old self, but the change was unmistakable. His breathing was stronger, his posture less defeated. Most importantly, his eyes had regained a spark of awareness, as if he was slowly remembering that he existed in the world and that his existence mattered to someone. When Marcus's assistant knocked gently to indicate that the session time was ending, Maya slowly sat up. Thunder watched her movement but didn't retreat back into his protective shutdown. Instead, he continued to observe her with what looked like genuine curiosity. "I'd like to come back tomorrow," Maya said to Marcus as they left the room. "If that's okay with you, and if it's okay with Thunder." Marcus looked back at Thunder, who was still awake and alert, still looking toward the door where Maya had disappeared. "Yes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Please come back tomorrow." For the first time in months, Marcus felt genuine hope. Not because Maya had performed some miracle cure, but because she had offered Thunder something that all the expensive specialists couldn't provide. The simple understanding that it was okay to grieve, and that healing happened in its own time at its own pace. When the heart was finally ready to remember that love was worth the risk of loss, Maya returned the next morning. But this time Marcus had arranged for her to enter through a private entrance away from the media circus. He had also done something unprecedented. He had given her a key card that would allow her to visit Thunder whenever she wanted, for as long as she wanted. "The 30-minute rule doesn't apply to you," Marcus explained as they walked toward Thunder's room. "I can see that he needs time to build trust, and you understand how to give him that time." Maya nodded gratefully. She had spent the night in a nearby doorway, not wanting to be too far from Thunder in case he needed her. She had also used some of her carefully saved money to buy real dog food. Not expensive specialty treats, but simple, nutritious kibble that reminded her of what she used to feed Buddy. When they entered the room, Thunder was awake and lying in a more alert position than Marcus had seen in weeks. His head was up and his ears were pricked forward as if he had been listening for Maya's return. When he saw her, his tail moved in what could almost be called a gentle wag. Maya sat in the same spot as the day before and resumed her patient presence. But today she had brought something different. A small, worn book of poetry that had belonged to her mother. She opened it and began reading aloud, not in a dramatic way, but in the soft, conversational tone of someone sharing something precious. "My mom used to read to me when I was sick," Maya explained to Thunder as she turned the pages. "She said words had a healing power that medicine couldn't match. I never really understood what she meant until after she died, and I found myself reading her favorite poems, just to feel close to her again." Thunder listened with growing attention. After about an hour, he slowly stood up and walked over to his water bowl, the first time he had initiated any movement in weeks. He drank deeply, then looked at Maya as if checking to make sure she was still there before lying down again, this time much closer to where she sat. Marcus watched from his observation chair, amazed by the subtle but significant changes in Thunder's behavior. The dog wasn't suddenly energetic or playful, but he was present in a way he hadn't been since Elena's death. On the third day, Thunder ate a small amount when Maya offered him the simple kibble from her hand. On the fourth day, he allowed her to gently pet his head while she read. By the fifth day, he was following her with his eyes whenever she moved around the room. But Maya's impact wasn't limited to Thunder. Marcus found himself drawn into conversations with this remarkable young woman, who possessed wisdom that seemed far beyond her years. During breaks, they would talk about loss, healing, and what it meant to rebuild life after tragedy. "How did you survive losing your mother and ending up on the streets?" Marcus asked one afternoon. "How did you not give up completely?" Maya was quiet for a moment, watching Thunder sleep peacefully nearby. "I did give up for a while. I wanted to disappear the same way Thunder does. But then I realized that carrying my mom's love didn't have to be a burden. It could be a gift. She taught me to see the beauty in small things, to be kind to creatures that couldn't help themselves. Living those lessons keeps her alive in me." Marcus felt something crack open inside his chest. "I've been so focused on my grief that I forgot Elena wouldn't want me to stop living. She wouldn't want Thunder to stop living either." "Grief isn't something you get over," Maya said gently. "It's something you learn to carry. The love doesn't go away just because the person does. Thunder will always miss Elena, but he can learn to remember her with joy instead of just pain." On the sixth day, something remarkable happened. Thunder actually approached Maya when she entered the room, his tail wagging softly. He had eaten his full breakfast for the first time in months and had even shown interest in looking out the window at the world beyond his small sanctuary. Dr. Morrison, who had been monitoring Thunder's progress, confirmed what everyone could see. "This is genuine improvement," she told Marcus privately. "His appetite is returning, his energy levels are up, and most importantly, he's engaging with his environment again. Whatever Maya is doing, it's working." The media had noticed the change too. Security cameras showed Thunder moving around the room, eating regularly and displaying behaviors that clearly indicated improved mental health. The story that had once been about a desperate billionaire's futile gesture had transformed into something far more meaningful. On the seventh day, Marcus made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. When Maya arrived for what everyone expected would be the final evaluation, Marcus had prepared legal documents transferring ownership of $1 million to her name. "You've done what you promised," Marcus said, presenting Maya with the paperwork. Thunder is eating, engaging, showing joy. "You've won the challenge." Maya looked at the documents with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. Mr. Wellington, I didn't help Thunder for money. I helped him because I understood how he felt. I know that, Marcus replied. That's exactly why you deserve it. But I have a bigger question for you. Would you consider staying? Not just for the money, but because Thunder has bonded with you in a way I haven't seen since Elena was alive. And honestly, I think I need your wisdom as much as he does. Maya was quiet for a long moment, looking at Thunder, who was now sitting alertly beside her, his eyes bright and his tail wagging gently. What do you mean staying? I mean a home. Your own room in my house. Education, stability, and a job helping me care for Thunder and perhaps other animals who need the kind of understanding you possess. You've shown me that healing isn't about expensive treatments or professional credentials. It's about recognizing pain and responding with genuine compassion. Maya felt tears threatening for the first time since her mother's death. She had been surviving on the streets for so long that she had forgotten what it felt like to be wanted, to be valued for who she was rather than pitied for what she lacked. Thunder seemed to sense the importance of the moment. He moved closer to Maya and rested his head against her leg, a gesture of trust and affection that confirmed what everyone in the room already knew. This bond was real, healing, and worth preserving. Yes, Maya whispered, placing her hand on Thunder's head. Yes, I'd like to stay. As Marcus watched Maya accept his offer and Thunder's contented response, he realized that the $1 million bet had been worth far more than the money. It had brought him exactly what he and Thunder had needed most. Someone who understood that love was the only currency that mattered in healing broken hearts. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the same spot by his office windows, but everything had changed. Thunder lay nearby, not in the defeated posture of deep depression, but in the relaxed position of a dog at peace. His coat had regained its shine, his eyes were bright and alert, and he regularly played with the new toys Maya had chosen for him. Simple rope toys and tennis balls rather than expensive gadgets. Maya had transformed just as dramatically as Thunder. Proper nutrition, medical care, and education had helped her physical health, but it was the emotional healing that showed most clearly. She moved through the world with a confidence that came from knowing she was valued and loved. Marcus had enrolled her in a private school where she excelled academically, but more importantly, she had found her true calling. The story of Thunder's recovery had inspired people around the world. But rather than capitalizing on fame, Maya had used her newfound platform to help other animals in need. She had convinced Marcus to establish the Elena Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to matching traumatized animals with people who understood their pain. We got another call today, Maya told Marcus as she entered his office with Thunder trotting happily beside her. A war veteran in Seattle has a service dog that's been depressed since his buddy died in combat. They heard about what we do here. Marcus smiled, watching Thunder greet him with genuine enthusiasm. The dog had never forgotten Elena, but he had learned to honor her memory while embracing life again. What did you tell them? That healing happens when someone truly understands your pain and doesn't try to rush you through it, Maya replied, settling into the chair that had become hers in Marcus's office. She was still thin but healthy now, and her eyes held a peace that spoke of hard-won wisdom. Thunder had become Maya's partner in her work with troubled animals. His own recovery made him uniquely suited to comfort other grieving pets. Something about his calm presence seemed to communicate to them that survival was possible. That joy could return even after devastating loss. The Elena Foundation had helped dozens of animals and their families in just a few months. Maya had developed an approach that combined practical care with emotional understanding, teaching pet owners that sometimes the best medicine was simply patient love. The foundation also provided financial assistance for veterinary care and connected traumatized animals with people who had experienced similar losses. Marcus had changed too. The experience with Thunder and Maya had taught him that his greatest wealth wasn't in his bank accounts or business holdings, but in his capacity for compassion. He had begun spending less time in board meetings and more time with the foundation, using his resources to create genuine healing rather than just accumulating more money. Dr. Morrison called. Maya continued. She wants to document our methods for a veterinary journal. She thinks other animal behaviorists could learn from the approach you discovered by accident. It wasn't an accident, Marcus corrected gently. It was desperation that led to wisdom. Sometimes we have to be completely lost before we can find what we really need. That evening, as had become their routine, Maya and Marcus sat with Thunder in the comfortable living room of Marcus's house. Maya had her own bedroom, beautifully furnished but decorated with her simple treasures: her mother's poetry book, pictures of Buddy, and drawings from children whose pets the foundation had helped. Thunder divided his time between Maya and Marcus, showing affection to both but maintaining the special bond with Maya that had saved his life. He would never be exactly the same dog he had been with Elena, but he had become something new, a survivor who could help others survive. "I've been thinking," Maya said as Thunder settled between them on the couch. "I want to study veterinary medicine when I graduate. Not to replace what we do with traditional treatment, but to combine it. Help other vets understand that animals have emotional needs just as complex as their physical ones." Marcus felt pride swell in his chest. Maya had gone from a homeless teenager to a young woman with clear vision and purpose. "The foundation will pay for your education, of course. But more than that, I think you're going to change how people understand the relationship between humans and animals." Maya scratched Thunder's ears, and he leaned into her touch with complete trust. "Thunder taught me that healing isn't about forgetting the past or pretending the pain didn't happen. It's about learning to hold love and loss together, letting them both be part of who you become." As the months continued, the Elena Foundation grew beyond anything Marcus had imagined. Maya's approach attracted attention from researchers, veterinarians, and animal welfare organizations worldwide. She had begun writing about her methods, always emphasizing that the key wasn't technique but genuine understanding and patience. Thunder became something of a celebrity himself, but Maya was careful to protect his well-being. He participated in foundation work because he seemed to enjoy helping other animals, but his health and happiness always came first. He had taught them all that recovery was possible, but it had to happen on the individual's terms and timeline. The $1 million bet that had started as a desperate gesture had transformed into something much more valuable, a new understanding of how healing really worked. Marcus had thought he was trying to save Thunder, but in the end, Thunder and Maya had saved him from a life focused only on financial success rather than genuine human connection. On quiet evenings, Marcus would watch Maya reading to Thunder from her mother's poetry book, and he would think about Elena. He could feel her approval of what their home had become, a place where broken things were mended not with money or expertise, but with the kind of patient love that Elena had always exemplified. Thunder would sometimes look at Elena's photograph, which still held a place of honor in their living room, and his tail would wag softly. He remembered her with joy now instead of just sadness, carrying her love forward while embracing the new love that Maya and Marcus offered him. The story had begun with loss and desperation, but it had become something beautiful. Proof that sometimes the most profound healing comes not from those with the most training or resources, but from those who truly understand what it means to lose everything and find the courage to love again anyway. As Maya often told the families who came to the foundation seeking help, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to carry love and loss together, and discovering that both can make you stronger. Thunder, curled contentedly between the two people who loved him most, was living proof that this wisdom was true.